welcome to this fireside chat. In the upcoming fireside chat, we will explore the dynamic influence of Gen AI in shaping the future of the retail and consumer packaged goods industries. The conversation will revolve around personalized shelves and shopping experiences, reinventing retail through predictive insights, real-time adaptation with dynamic pricing and packaging, and addressing modern challenges in retail and CPG with Gen AI solutions. Guiding this enlightening discussion as the session moderator, we have Sairam Vedam, the Chief Marketing Officer at Signity, who will facilitate the conversation. So please join us on the dais. Please join us. Welcome, Mr. Sairam. And joining us on the panel is Shruti Kashyap, Chief Information Officer and Head of IT for South Asia at Hindustan Unilever, a leading FMCG company, coming with 15 years of experience spanning various roles within the organization. And we have Jeyandran Venugopal, Chief Product and Technology Officer at Flipkart, a major e-commerce company in India responsible for implementing Flipkart's technology vision and strategy across sectors. Over to you, Mr. Sairam.
Thank you. So I was a little nervous before the lunch because our session was supposed to be right before the lunch. I thought people would, curse me if I get delayed. Now I'm a little anxious because anything after lunch is very different. So I wanted to start with a couple of disclaimers. The questions that have been written here, we did not ask ChatGPT. It was written by myself and my team. And the answers are definitely not coming from ChatGPT. So we have tremendous amount of experience and expertise amongst these two distinguished leaders that I had some opportunity to interact. I'm sure their insights will be really useful. And since we have about 24 minutes, 23 seconds, we'll straight jump into the thing. I think, first and foremost, the boot camp that the Nasscom GenAI Foundry conducted yesterday was of absolute impact. Interacted with some amazing startups, and the talent is out there to see, and the innovation is out there to experience. And then today's sessions have been really useful. While I work as a chief marketing officer at Signity, obviously marketing also experiences one of the first use cases of generative AI. At our organization, we are the world's leading digital assurance and digital engineering company. We actually work with some of the largest retail CPG companies in the world. We work about 80 of the Fortune 2000 companies. From whatever I understand from the technology discussions we have with our leaders, so not just generative AI, right? AI has been at the frontier of innovation that's truly driving in. From what I understand from this Nasscom McKinsey report, which ma'am was talking about, incrementally there seems to be a potential of delivering a $400 to $600 billion incremental revenues, and the net additional value that GenAI can drive in can actually be more than the entire GDP of UK. Particularly to retail and CPG, it's about 2% of annual productivity growth overall, put together all the retail CPG companies in the world. I think that's a tremendous impact that we are looking at. And there have been significant amount of AI-led disruption that we've all seen, right? I don't think any one of us in this room would have not bought something either through a Flipkart or any of their portfolio companies, or any one of us not would have used something that Unilever would have produced, right? So we are talking about two companies which have transformatively disrupted our day-to-day lives as well. So with that, I'll welcome both Shruti and Jay. Maybe I would like to have a 30-second introduction about your specific role, so that what dimensions of tech that you touch in your respective organizations.
Sure. So, hi everyone. Thanks, Sairam, for the intro. So, I'm Shruti. I'm the head of IT for South Asia at Unilever, and that includes our India business, which is better known as Hindustan Unilever. And in case that doesn't resonate, we're the maker of brands like Lakme, Surf Excel, Fair and Lovely, Tresemme, Sunsilk. So, I'm sure there are some of these brands that are in all of your households. My role is that I'm responsible for all technology run as well as innovation for HUL as a business and for all of our markets in South Asia, which includes Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Nepal.
Sure. Thank you.
Hey, Sairam. So I lead the product and technology function at Flipkart. Flipkart all of us know that Flipkart is a horizontal commerce company. We also have Myntra, which is a fashion subsidiary within the Flipkart group. There is also ClearTrip, which is a Flipkart group company, which is a travel company. And we also have some new play in healthcare. We have Flipkart Health, which we have invested in recently. So I lead basically product management, which includes design, user research, everything, analytics, data science, technology, including the CIO function as well, which includes corporate IT, information security, and all of it.
Sure. I think let's get a little conversational. Maybe we'll start with Shruti. So, as the CIO, right, you obviously are at the forefront of implementing a variety of technology solutions. Would you throw some light on specific challenges or the roadmap that you see in terms of integrating generative AI into your current IT infrastructure, your tech stack, and at large as a consumer goods company, right? So, at the end of the day, the digital transformation age that we are living in, how does this whole thing is panning out? Are you in a laggard stage, early adopter, or even advanced stages?
So maybe I'll start with the disclaimer that, we are definitely nowhere even close to saying that we are embedding Gen AI. We are very much in experimental stages. We want to figure out what are the right use cases for a technology like this. Where does it make sense? Where is it cost effective to do something like this, etc. In terms of how we are approaching this, I would probably classify it into 4 large pillars. So one is this whole space of knowledge management, which is what sort of ChatGPT became popular for. And this is more internal to the organization. You have so many policies, you have so many documents. If I want to ask, what is the expense that I'm entitled to, if I want to ask what's the policy for maternity, and so on and so forth, you don't have to read through reams and reams of policy documents anymore, and simple large language models that can help generate these insights for the wider employee force at the click of a button. The second space is really employee productivity. We've all heard of Microsoft Copilot. In fact, Unilever is one of the first organizations which has activated Copilot for its users. And I think one of the greatest joys for me is not having to take minutes of the meeting anymore, because Copilot does it for me, and does it quite well, by the way. And then there are other areas of employee productivity, right? So there is repetitive tasks. There are people who are just constantly pulling out data from multiple systems, trying to pull it together. There's things like anomaly detection. All of that is very easily doable through multiple elements of AI. Yeah. The third piece is really around content, right? And as the maker of big brands, iconic brands like a Lakme or a Knorr, we are constantly creating content and putting it out for our consumers, whether it's on social media or the ads that we serve on TV and so on, right? And this is a bit of a space where obviously there are a lot of challenges around how ethical and legal it is to use, AI generated content. And that's a space where we do want to experiment in and really see how that whole, space shapes up. And then I think the last one I would say is really insights. And insights is about saying that I have a ton of market research available. I have a lot of internal data on my brand. So let's take shampoo as a category. Can I use large language models to give me insights about what's a potential white space that Unilever could play in? What is it that I'm missing out on? Is there a trend that I'm missing out on? Suddenly, we all remember that time when suddenly onion oil became very popular as an ingredient in shampoo. We remember a time when charcoal became very popular as an ingredient in toothpaste. And sometimes large organizations need to catch these trends well in time so that we are there when actually the trend is sort of activating. So insights about market, etc., through a set of internal, external information, that would be the fourth pillar. So I hope that covers.
Yeah, that's quite comprehensive. And I recollect, so one of the analyst meetings that we went, before the analyst joined, there was this digital assistant. It started taking notes, and one of my colleague was just singing something. So we are living in an age which is pretty interesting. And thanks for being so comprehensive. Let me move to Jay. I think, so from your experience, is there a particular use case that you've had that you've either built or developed or experienced, which have delivered some transformative impact at the product development perspective, right? I mean, that's what you oversee, including product management. And are there any results, metrics, successes that you could share?
Yeah, we have developed a range of use cases. To our knowledge, we are the very first company, certainly in India, but maybe even globally, to have developed end-to-end conversational assistance specifically tuned for e-commerce needs. And we recently launched it just in time for our Big Billion Day, which happened through all of last week. We saw tremendous engagement from the users. We have been doing A/B tests for it over a period of about month and a half since the product was first kind of put out, and we have been using the chat logs to further tune the reward models, doing further work to tweak our prompt engineering and all of that to improve our answerability metric. And we have seen our thumbs up share from the users keep going up. We are starting to see meaningful movement in certain categories of products being discovered through this interface rather than through traditional interfaces for e-commerce discovery. And that is giving us a lot of hope. But I wouldn't call these yet as a big success story set. Definitely we are seeing glimmers that there is an entirely new channel of e-commerce that is developing. Traditionally, e-commerce customers could discover products. Maybe it is for inspiration categories, discovery categories like fashion, lifestyle, beauty, personal care, or very spec-driven categories like mobile, electronics, appliances, and so on, right? So each of them had their specific ways of discovering products on e-commerce platforms, revolving around search, merchandising, as well as personalized recommendations. But now there is an entirely new fourth channel that is almost mimicking a very, very well-informed salesperson who knows the in and out of the products in the catalog and is able to match it in real time with the user's current need state through a very, very natural conversational interface. So we believe that this technology will actually lead to customer behavior changes in very meaningful ways and improve discoverability on e-commerce platforms. So that's been a really good success story for us. Interestingly, where we have got immediate ROI and are also able to deploy this technology at scale is more on back-end use cases around, like, for example, cataloging. We are using it to do product summarizations, description generation, creating images, catalog images from flat shots, doing a lot of creative imagery using large image models, and so on and so forth. So there is a ton of use cases where we have deployed it already. And of course, the first use case that everybody started using it for, which is customer service support and all of that, there are immediate ROIs that we have seen, and those I would call as success stories. But the marquee and transformative use case, which is product discovery, we believe that there is still some more work to be done, but there is a lot of glimmer of hope based on what you have seen so far.
Excellent. So, and then coming back, Shruti, so it's always the ambition is to provide hyper-personalized customer experiences, right? It's a particularly, transcending digital commerce and retailing. So, is GenAI being used in a CPG realm, in the one that you lead in, to create this personalized interactions with customers? Is that something that you have done, or not necessarily with generative AI as such? Are there any experiences that you could share?
Sure. Maybe I'll pick up an example in the customer space. And for us, as an organization which is really all about making soaps and soups, we have to get our products to the shelves of a modern trade store like a hypercity. We have to get it on the shelves of a kirana store. We have to get it online on the big players like a Flipkart or an Amazon. The bread and butter for us is really still the kirana store. And when you have 10 million kirana stores in the country, and you have a list of 200, 300 SKUs that you are selling to them, how do you effectively sell those products to the kirana store, right? I imagine if a salesman were to go and read out that list of 300 every day to a kirana store, it just wouldn't work, right? And therefore, in very early days of AI, this is something we consciously invested in to say that what is the ideal assortment for a kirana store. so that I don't have a salesman who is spending hours and hours taking orders. Instead, he's actually has a smart list of products that he's selling into the Kirana store, and then he's focusing his time more on growing the business, which is innovations, new products that you want to pitch into the store, and so on and so forth. There's another interesting insight we had, very recently, which we picked up, which is that a lot of, these small stores, they connect with their customers on WhatsApp, right? So a lot of us may do that also, that you have the WhatsApp number of, your nearby store, and you'll send him a list, and he'll send a delivery boy, and that boy will dispatch the products. And it's just ease, because he knows exactly what you want. It's much easier than ordering on a Swiggy Instamart, who may not know which brand you want, and so on and so forth. And we've been thinking around, how do we make that journey more enriching for that Kirana store? And one of the things we are doing is we're tying up with some Bollywood celebrities and using GenAI to say that, can I have a retailer specific messaging created? So, there is a Bollywood celebrity who will say that from Sairam store near you, hey, you know what, there is an offer available on Lux soap, or, on Nor soaps, or whatever. So again, these are very initial stages, I would say, experimental. Our focus still is much more on how do we as an organization become more agile with GenAI. And then the next level will be to take it to our customers, to take it to our consumers, and so on. So that's how we are really prioritizing.
Is it fair to say a lot focus right now is in inward transformation leading with GenAI?
Absolutely.
So from your perspective, Jay, I mean, everyone of us know that this is probably the biggest game changer, or perceived to be the game changer, right? Since you sort of have engineering dimension hands-on day in and day out like her, is there challenges that you see to deploy this technology at scale?
Yeah, I think as we were developing many of the use cases that I was talking about earlier, Sairam. So what we realized is there are some hindrances right now in terms of some of them are fundamental to the current state of the technology. This is a fast evolving technology, and hopefully with time these will get addressed. For example, today we still have limited context windows, and therefore we have to work around the context window by doing summarizations to compact the conversations when there are multi-turn conversations going on. We cannot pass our users' personalization context in any meaningful way into the context window and all of that. The other big thing is latency for us, because we are not doing a streaming use case. We have to actually get the entire response from the LLM, then do a lot of post-processing before we can present it to the user. So latency is actually a meaningful problem for us, rather than like when you just directly interact with ChatGPT, you don't see the latency impact because it starts streaming the words at you and you start reading it, right? So you don't wait for the entire sequence of tokens to be generated, but we do have to, because we have to do something called grounding, and we do retrieval augmentation, we do some other further post-processing on the corpus before we can present it to the user and all of that. So that's a big problem. But the biggest problem of all is the cost. So we pay per token, and for many of the use cases, the ROI is yet to be justified when using technology which is at this point as expensive as it is today. So those are, I would say, some of the challenges. And as more and more the foundation models get commoditized, and differentiation for companies will happen more from your fine tuning. There are still techniques to be developed for what are called parameter efficient fine tuning, and how do you do it in a cost effective way. And those are all challenges that I'm sure as our teams are grappling with it around the world, different teams working on it are facing similar problems and working through them.
Sure. And then, I mean, we can't have a discussion with generative AI without talking about privacy, security, compliance, and concerns, right? Particularly when there is a lot of customer engagement, customer data. I know some of the use cases are outward facing, as you said. Is there some challenges that you've experienced, something that you negated, and there is a strategy that you deploy to sort of navigate this whole conundrum that we are talking about?
Sure. So I think, in India, obviously the conversation around privacy has grown significantly since the announcement of the data protection bill. And therefore, one of the things we've done is, set up an AI assurance board internally within Unilever, which has representation from legal, from privacy, from cyber security, from technology, and multiple parties, just making sure that every initiative that is actually launching in the market is vetted from all of these aspects. There is the aspect of consent, obviously. So, for instance, like in the example that I gave, that if I'm using a Bollywood celebrity to create messages and then I want to use GenAI to actually personalize, etc., the consent has to be very strong from the celebrity you're dealing with, and then equally a right agreement with the retailer to not misuse it, right? He can potentially use it to say anything that he wants, but that's not the idea. And therefore, just making sure that the right guardrails are put before you are taking anything to market. The other aspect, and which is now becoming a significant challenge, like Jay mentioned, is the cost. Like it happens with every new tech that comes in, there is a little bit of a hype cycle and you want to try out more and more things. But then there are areas where Gen AI makes sense and there are areas where it doesn't. And at sometimes we have found it to be cost prohibitive to do something like a Gen AI at the scale at which we want. And therefore, those are again some calls where we are taking, where you have to look at, is there a real business case here to do Gen AI?
I think that ties up to what he was talking about. Right, cost is still prohibitive for things to be adopted at scale. So, by the way, I am a CMO, right? So there is this whole creative approaches to customer engagement, loyalty programs, and some of these are obviously the bread and butter of companies like Flipkart. So there are, obviously you would have looked at many techniques. Are there insights on how you're actually generating as a product leader using generative AI or any of the AI techniques to directly assist your on-field marketing teams through hyper-personalized messaging, or it could be to a diverse demographic of customer base, right? India is very rich in its ethnicity that you deal with. And any other use cases from an engineering perspective that you could still talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the catalog use case that I talked about earlier is something that we could have never done at scale without deploying GenAI, right? So earlier we used to do, for example, model shoots in our catalog studios, where it'll be a kind of a single model posing, and then we deploy it for every customer, right? So and usually it's like a green screen background kind of a thing, a widescreen background, right? So it's like a very plain shot, right? So we know that when it comes to marketing and resonating it with customer, what really works is if the customer is looking, for example, for a dress, let's say a Western wear dress, for, let's say, she wants to wear it for a cocktail party, you are able to show a model wearing it in the background of a cocktail party happening, etc., then it resonates better than a white shot, like white background shot, right? So now what we are doing is to actually generate multiple model draping shots using GenAI avatars that resonate better. Even within India, if you look at body types and shapes, ethnicity and skin tone and everything, it's very diverse. The country is very diverse, right? Showing a standard model, and many times, ironically, like, the models that are used in Indian catalog photo shoots are all Russian, by the way, if you didn't realize it. So we do actually today generate like GenAI avatar models, which are a variety of them, and then are able to show model drapes on those avatars with different backgrounds. And then based on the session context that we have for the user, then we are able to show the right catalog imagery that will resonate with the user. Similarly, merchandising earlier used to be completely manual, right? Some merchandiser will sit and look at a set of collection of products that the category or some seller wants to merchandise, and they will create creatives by hand, right? So now with this technology, what we're able to offer our sellers is the ability to point a collection, and then the GenAI system not only creates a representative image of the collection, it'll either pick from existing stock imagery or do some inbending, outpainting from existing images, and also create a nice tagline that goes with the collection. It's all automatic, right? So this lends itself very well to doing depersonalization at scale, and those are some use cases we have already deployed.
Excellent. Just a couple of things to end the thing, right? Are there stuff that you think where, Gen AI is not required, maybe AI is required, or when do you actually get to choose? Are you thinking, areas like where you don't need Gen AI for this one, you can still live without it?
So I think for us, our brands stand for a very strong purpose. And for us, GenAI is always going to be supplementing the brands with content creation, with agility. But the fact that Dove stands for real beauty is not something that GenAI can create. So that's what I
As
was.
long as there is emotion, the human element. Okay. From your perspective.
Yeah, I think I would summarize it this way, right? So our data science team, before even we had GenAI out there, in our production context, we would have deployed maybe anywhere between 200 to 300 different models at the least, right? I would think that the use cases which lends itself to GenAI being the primary tool now would probably be no more than, like, let's say 30, 40 of those use cases. The rest of them need not be using GenAI. Even in some cases where if you could use GenAI, but it'll be like the proverbial, like killing a mosquito with a bazooka kind of a thing, right? So you don't need to spend as much, and you can get equally effective results by using existing traditional technologies. And even when we talk about generative technology, I think people gravitate towards looking at only using the biggest models out there. But most of the times, I would in fact say 90% plus of the times, you don't need to actually use GPT-4 or the biggest models with like the 500 billion parameters plus or 300 billion parameters even. Most of the use cases are very well addressable with pretty much the same quality, and ironically in some cases even better, with a fine-tuned model based on a larger, smaller parameter size model. So I think there are a lot of nuances to this, and I think I would advise every team, every company working on this to have a core GenAI council that is looking at any use cases that are being proposed and answering a few questions, right? Is it using a responsible and ethical AI framework? For example, Nasscom itself has put out through its AI Advisory Council a responsible AI framework. Is the use case checking off the boxes on how it is being deployed? Is it within the framework? Is it cost efficient? Are there other techniques that can do it in a cost efficient way? And if it has to use GenAI as the pivotal technology element, then are the right choices being made in terms of the model to use, closed source versus open source, size of the model with fine tuning, not without fine tuning, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the way to think about this, at least from what our experience has been.
Thank you. I think we've had a treatise of good use cases from two very large conglomerate companies that touch our lives, and in between there is a lot of GenAI that is flowing. But what I also understand is, as the IBM leader put it up, from being plus AI to AI plus, definitely the journey seems to be that way. And there can also be use cases where you don't necessarily need to go all the way to that. But this seems to be the way forward. And I have thoroughly enjoyed, learned a lot of insights that both of you took time to share. I thank Nasscom for giving us this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.